Wow! How's it going, CPAC? We need a renewed patriotic nationalism in America. In technology, that means let's get our best team together and go whip China. And in politics, it means let's get our best team together and go whip the establishment. Speaking of people who ought to lose primaries, if Liz Cheney were on this stage today, she'd get booed off of it. What does that say? The leadership of our party is not found in Washington, D.C. You are the energy. We are America. That's why they're in the 8 square miles of Washington, D.C., and we're here in the Sunshine State of Florida.
Live from the militarily occupied nation's capital, still with 5,000 to 7,000 combat troops, up-armored. This is the 50th day of the occupation. You're in the war room. It is Friday, the 26th of February, the year of our Lord, 2021, now with 37.9 million downloads on our podcast, of course, live on the John Frederick Radio Network nationwide, on Real America's Voice, the streaming service of the Trump Revolution, also Real America's Voice up on Dish Channel 219 on the satellite, and Comcast 113 out in the Midwest, and on Rumble, on Gab, on Telegram, and Roku, Pluto, and Vizio. Everywhere you are, this show is ubiquitous and meets you where you are. Of course, subtitled in Mandarin, to blow through the firewall into mainland China and also to the 250 million Chinese diaspora throughout the world on G News and GTV. Okay, this show is going to originate from Washington, D.C., but we're in CPAC live for the entire hour. Want to talk about anti-establishment, talk about a fighter. We've got a couple of them today right out of the box. Paulina and Kim Klacik, two individuals who ran for Congress. Want to start with Anna. Anna, thank you very much for joining us on War Room Pandemic.
Thank you so much for having me on, Steve.
So first, before I want to talk about what's happening at CPAC, I've got to get the audience, because we have a global audience, up to speed on who you are, briefly what's your background, and get us up to date. You took on Charlie Crist, a former governor of Florida, in a congressional race in a D+2 district, and fought him down to the wire. Tell us about yourself and tell us about that.
Absolutely. So my name is Paulina Luna. I am a former Air Force veteran. I served 5 years active duty, 1 year at the Guard, and in August of 2018, I was actually slotted to go to medical school, and the reason why I turned down that seat was because I realized that my generation, specifically using the Hispanic demographic, was being targeted to usher in socialism, and if there's one thing I don't want to do, it's practice medicine in a socialist country. So I was offered a job with as a national director with Turning Point USA, and I worked alongside Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens for about a year. I then stepped down so that I could run for Congress, and during my campaign, actually, I helped to direct a series with PragerU titled Americanos, focusing on the conservative Hispanic message and dream. And since then, I actually did very much so enjoy my race against Charlie, and I can say congratulations to DeSantis because I drained his bank account. And now Charlie, although he wants to run for governor, I learned a lot during my campaign that I won't repeat as far as mistakes go a second time around.
But this was competitive. How did somebody that was really unknown, how did you go up against and keep it competitive in a Democratic district? How did you keep it competitive and take the fire to him when you were virtually unknown, had no name recognition, and were so young?
One, I absolutely did not discredit the grassroots activism. So I was holding my own little mini rallies, whether it was protesting against socialism or protesting against the suppression of free speech using tech to do so. I did maintain that, but also, too, I was able to leverage social media. And in fact, I was getting so effective with it that Twitter actually started to suppress me as a candidate through the primary towards August 18th and then in through the general election that resulted in me actually filing an FEC complaint against Twitter for campaign interference. So I think that there is an important note that social media is how my generation communicates, but I learned a lot from President Trump in the sense that I went directly to the people. I did this thing called not lying, so I went up there and I told the people exactly who I was, I embraced my flaws, and I told them the truth of what's happening in this country.
Listen, the key that picks the lock in this political realignment is working class people coming now to the Republican Party, to the Trump movement. The thing the left fears most is working class Hispanics, particularly young working class and middle class Hispanics that are strivers. Walk us through, what do you think we continue? What do we have to do, not as far as messaging, but what do we have to do as far as action to build on the great endeavor and the great triumph President Trump had this time with the Hispanic community?
The first thing that we have to do is start standing up and targeting the Hispanic demographic through media. Currently in the United States, there's not a lot of news outlets for conservative Hispanics. And so that's something that I don't care who the outlet is, I'll assist with, even if it means doing it for free, because I genuinely believe that you have the largest voting minority in the country in Hispanic Americans. We typically tend to lean conservative as we have strong religious values. And I think that, as far as the GOP goes, the GOP absolutely does need to engage the Hispanic demographic. I can tell you that, I tried to give them a little bit of insight into how I do it, but that's something that all candidates should be doing, regardless of whether or not the GOP is doing it currently.
Let's talk about it. Before CPAC, there were an awful lot of people sitting there going, oh, it's so terrible. We won on November 3rd, but it was taken from us. The courts didn't stand up. The state legislatures didn't stand up. Of course, in Florida, Ron DeSantis and the team down there know how to run an election. But for the rest of the country, you saw a lot of people, I'm in the fetal position, I'm in bed, I'm sucking my thumb, I can't get out. Woe is me. They're going to have 2 new states, 9 new justices on the Supreme Court. Given that, what is the energy today on the opening day of CPAC through your eyes, Anna? How do you think we stand? Is CPAC high energy, or are people still questioning what happened on November 3rd?
I think there's a lot of people that are ready to get back in the fight. I'm actually seeing a lot of people here to not only hear Don Jr. speak, and that was previously, but to hear what the president's going to say tomorrow. I think so many people tend to be pessimists, but the fight's only over when you choose to let it be over. Don't just back down because it didn't go the way that we had it planned the first time. If anything, we need to get more so involved in this fight to save our country, more so than we have before. That means running candidates, even candidates against those that voted for impeachment against the president of the United States, Donald Trump, but also too, we have to get involved at the local level. It's not just top down. It's about what we can do to ensure that all elections are run securely. And that means getting good supervisors of elections elected as well. So there's a lot of good energy, especially for tomorrow. I'm actually anticipating what the president will say. And I can tell you that, again, guys, don't give up. It's only over when we let it be over.
Well, let's talk about what are you doing now, and what are you going to do in the future? You're considered a young, hard charger. You're somebody that people look to say, hey, look, this is a fighter. This is somebody that won't back down. She took on Charlie Crist and almost beat him. So what are you doing now, and what are you going to do in the future?
Well, I can tell you that I actually just launched a podcast that will be airing in April, and that's actually to kind of go back at what we were addressing earlier, to help target the conservative Hispanic demographic through the airwaves, and I'm hoping that that will be successful. That's with iHeartRadio, Newt Gingrich's company. And then also, too, Florida is going to be redistricted, so without saying too much, I'm not out of the fight. I think that there's going to be some great things, especially to come soon here from the state of Florida, and I'm just getting started, and there's some incredible people like Kim Klacik at my side.
I want to talk to you about just policy for relief for a second. You've seen this Equality Act passed at least in the House yesterday. They're trying to eviscerate Title IX women's sports by having young men be able to compete with them. What do you think the 1 or 2 policy things that conservatives, the Trump movement, the president, people around him, what should they focus on to build this Hispanic, to build the momentum we've got in the Hispanic community?
One, I think definitely protecting freedom of religion. We're seeing that this Equality Act is actually infringing on one of the basic principles of our country, which is the ability to worship how we please and to uphold our religious values. But then also, too, I think that illegal immigration is still an important topic, especially for those that have come to this country legally. We know currently that the southern border is still suffering from high instances of the cartels running drugs, and then also to human trafficking. Just because President Trump is not currently currently in the president's chair doesn't mean that we drop the ball on that and that we stop fighting that. And so I think that that's important, as well as the Second Amendment. You know, Hispanic Americans are conservative. We love our guns, we love our religion, and we love our families, and we don't want big government to take that away. So that needs to be the continuing message of any person that's hoping to run and gain support from the conservative Hispanic demographic here in the United States.
Okay, Anna, what is your social media coordinates? People want to know how to follow you, how they get to you, how they follow you, particularly at CPAC and then afterwards.
Absolutely. I'm actually available to follow on all social media platforms at Real Anna Paulina. I am, though, on a Twitter strike, so follow me on Parler instead.
Anna Paulina Luna, Florida 13. We'll see where it turns out after this redistricting, but you put on a heck of a fight. You're a real warrior. Thank you so much for being in the war room.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
Okay, we're going to go to Boris Epshteyn real quickly. Breaking news out of Arizona. Also breaking news in the White House with Ron Klain. We're going to come back. We've got Kim Klacik after that, Mark Finchem, Captain Maureen, Bannon, Dave Ramaswamy, Fog City Midge. A packed lineup today. We're going to try to get a couple more in there coming by the booth. Boris, explain to us, there's a huge news. Finchem's coming over. He's just getting an award, but he's coming over to talk about this. What happened in Arizona today? Can you, because I know you spent so much time out there, did the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, actually authorize now the hand count of over 2.1 million ballots in Maricopa County?
That's correct. The court has said that the Arizona Senate does have the right to subpoena over 2 million ballots out of Maricopa County. The Maricopa Board of County Supervisors were against it. They were pushing back, which are all, by the way, majority Republicans. They pushed back. There was a court battle, and it appears that the Senate, on the side of election integrity, has now won. We'll see if there's any sort of appeals, et cetera, but that at this point in time, the Arizona State Senate is going to have an opportunity and a chance to examine over 2 million actual ballots in Arizona, a state where, if you remember, when I got there on November 5th, 2 days after the election, President Trump was down, I believe, over 100,000 votes. When we were done, he was down under 10,000 votes. And there were over 10,000 illegal immigrants who voted in Arizona alone. So that would make up the difference. A lot of other voter election irregularities, lack of observation of mail-in ballots, lack of observation of duplicate ballots, a lot of issues that came out in Arizona that I dealt with firsthand. So it is extremely important to note that this happened today. Now, we'll see what happens from here. We have to make sure the court battle continues to be won, but this is important. And if there are real issues found in these 2 million ballots, that could start a domino effect to other states. Why haven't we yet seen the physical ballots in Georgia? Why haven't we been able to examine the ballots in Wisconsin? We know there were over 200,000 unlawful ballots that are against Wisconsin law, Wisconsin Constitution, in Milwaukee and in Dane County, which is where Madison, Wisconsin is. We know that this election was fraught with irregularities, and this news today is very, very important. The 2020 election is done. Joe Biden was inaugurated. Do I believe he got 80 million votes? I do not. Do I believe President Trump won this election in terms of the most legal votes? I personally do. That is my belief, and I'm not going to be silenced in saying so. So I think this is an important move today. This is an important news today, and finally we have a court who did the right thing. And I disagree with the Supreme Court. I agree with Clarence Thomas, something that was very important this week, Clarence Thomas's dissent in saying that the Supreme Court should have taken up the election challenges in Pennsylvania and other states.
Boris, just hang on 1 second. I want to hold you over the break. We've got a jam show, but I got to ask you one more question about what's happening at CPAC regarding voter fraud and how important it is. The scar of November 3rd is not going to heal till we get to the bottom of it. I think at CPAC they've got 5 panels on voter integrity. We're going to return, go back to CPAC in a moment in the War Room.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Boris, they've got 5 panels at CPAC on voter integrity. As you know, that's probably not there to solve the voter integrity problem in its entirety. It's to show MAGA that we're real about this? What has to happen sort out November 3rd to make sure we get 120% turnout from MAGA in the future?
Well, it's important to look to November 3rd, and these lawsuits are important. What's happening in Arizona is vital in terms of actually reviewing the ballots. Full stop. It is also absolutely vital, absolutely imperative to look to 22 and 24 and ensure that this unchecked mail balloting doesn't happen again. The RNC's got to be filing lawsuits anywhere and everywhere we experienced issues, even in California, in New York, wherever we saw unchecked mail balloting, wherever we saw balloting that violated Article 2 of the Constitution by secretaries of state or governors, judges setting rules and not state legislatures as is stated in Article 2, mandated in Article 2 of the Constitution. We have got to be in court anywhere and everywhere. Look at what Mark Elias does on the Democrat side, okay? They come at you hot and hard every single time,
Perkins
anywhere
Court.
in the country and in the territories, okay? They don't care where it is. They don't care if there's one voter in a precinct or one voter in a district.
They're going to contest
in court because that court can then be precedent. We've got to be there. We've got to be fighting, because if we do not, we're going to get rolled, just like we got rolled in 2020.
Okay. What's your social media coordinates? Everybody wants to know. How can they follow you during the day, and particularly during CPAC, where I know you're tweeting out stuff and getting ready for the president's speech? Boris is going to be part of the Sunday coverage.
No doubt about it, Steve. At Boris EP on Twitter, Boris_Epshteyn, Boris_EPSHTEYN on the gram. Cannot wait for the president's speech. It's going to be full of fire. Stay strong. God bless. See you Sunday.
We'll see you Sunday on the show. Okay, now I want to go to another fighter. This is Murderer's Row right now. Started with Paulina Luna, got Boris Epshteyn. Now have Kim Klacik. She became a hero to this movement because she threw down hard in Maryland 7. A district that's not really contested by conservatives, but she came at it with a flamethrower. Kim, the first question I have for you, what are the lessons learned in your fight for a congressional seat in a heavily Democratic congressional district where conservatives really haven't taken the message out? What are the biggest lessons learned you can tell our audience that you learned?
Yeah, well, first of all, Steve, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. Well, I learned a lot, right? It was a D+30 district. And when we went to go run, the Maryland GOP party definitely told us, you know what, Jesus Christ couldn't win that seat. So we're not going to get behind you. We're not going to exhaust donors on you. So you better get out there and fight if you want to actually run. And so, you know what? I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I don't care. I'm going to do it. And so that's what we did. Knocking on every single door is just part of campaigning, right? It's what we knew we had to do, especially on a grassroots level. But it was interesting. Every door we knocked on, we asked people, we're like, how do we get you to just consider voting for a Republican? And people would tell me, Kim, you're the first Republican I've ever met. And these are individuals that have lived in this district for 50 years that never even laid their eyes on a Republican. And I said, well, how would you be able to vote for us, right, if we never show up with an option? And so then it occurred to me that, we got to keep going strong, and just get the conservative message to everybody within the district, especially West Baltimore. I don't know if you've seen the pictures. I don't know. You probably saw the campaign ad. That is real life in West Baltimore. Crumbling infrastructure, poor education system, crime, violence. It's terrible.
So listen, my mom's from Baltimore. One of the reasons I had such an interest in your race, and I was raised in a predominantly black neighborhood in Richmond. And I'll tell you, and I tell people all the time, African Americans are innately conservative. And they're family-oriented. So and when you take the message to the African-American community, Kim, what are the policy prescriptions, one or two policy prescriptions that you think we can lean into this as populist, as nationalist, as the Trump movement, with President Trump at the head of it? What do you think we've got to offer the African-American community so that district doesn't become D30, it's R+5 in a couple of years?
Yeah, so first and foremost, like I said, we've got 35 failing schools in Maryland. 23 of them are in Baltimore City. We need school choice yesterday, right? Our education system is failing our kids generation after generation. And that's one of our main problems. The other problem is the fact that we don't have any job opportunities, right? And that was something that I ran on, and something that President Trump was all for, is bringing manufacturing back to the Baltimore area. We have the second largest port in the country, and we don't utilize it. We just saw that we had to rely on other countries for PPE during the pandemic. Meanwhile, we can bring that billion-dollar medical equipment industry right back through the Baltimore port and do career training, and make sure it's paid career training. Get people these hope that, when we were there, people were like, you brought hope to our district. You talked about jobs, you talked about education, and we talked about the fact that most, like you said, most black people are conservative. We grow up in the church.
right? We were conservatives way back when, before the welfare state was introduced to many of our neighborhoods. But you know what? We got to get back to that.
Kim, you're the worst nightmare for the progressive left, an independent young black woman who's got a conservative point of view and a lot of fight and not going to back down 1 inch. I just want to make sure the audience understands how tough it is. How hard does the media come after you personally?
Yeah, no, it's definitely tough. I mean, in Baltimore, of course, the media didn't even want to cover me, right? But like you said, I am the worst nightmare. According to the left, I can't be racist or sexist, right? Because I'm a black woman. And so I can say whatever it is that I want to say. And they know that I'm going to do that. So yeah, I was ready to go to Capitol Hill, take on the squad, especially Ilhan Omar and AOC. But yeah, the media didn't cover us fairly. That was so great about President Trump and making sure that our video went viral on social media. We didn't need the media at that point. It had over, I think it was 27 million views. We raised over $8 million with that campaign ad alone. And of course, because President Trump talked about us, I think he actually endorsed us a total of 4 times. And I think he really believed in our campaign. Everyone talked about, President Trump, you hear in the media, he's so racist, he's so this. Well, if that is the case, then why did he support us 100% in a predominantly black district? He wanted it to get better because he's not racist. But you know what? We're going to keep telling that story for him.
Kim, the question I have, too, I know you just arrived at CPAC, and a lot of people have been very depressed after January 6th about, woe is me, Biden's there, Twitter's banning us, all that. Talk to us about the energy, though. We're feeling here in Washington, D.C., as we've done live coverage today throughout the day, that there's real energy, and it's driven by young people like yourself. What's the energy like as you feel it at CPAC right now?
Yeah, you're right. The energy is great because you're right. There are a lot of fresh faces out here. You just talked to Paulina Luna. We've got Madison Cawthorn, Byron Donaldson's walking around. There are a lot of people that are very America first, just like President Trump. And, whether the party wants to admit it, I think we're going towards still supporting President Trump and his values and what he stood for and his policies. So, yeah, there's a lot of energy here. Of course, there's a lot more people here now, probably because President Trump will be speaking. I know that's why we came down. But, that's what it is about. We want to hear what President Trump is going to do next because we want to be right there by his side.
Our audience wants to know what you're doing today and what you're going to do next. Can you give us a quick summary of what you're doing and where you're headed?
Yeah, so redrenaissance.com is where you can go and check out our PAC. We're going to be supporting minority Republicans across the country in districts that, you may or may not be able to win, but these are districts that need to be chipped away at. And so we're going to go out there, we're going to register voters, we're going to be talking to many individuals. We're actually going to do an HBCU tour. So we'll be visiting historically black colleges, spreading the conservative message. We got to get out there and do it at some point in time. And then after that, I will see, like I said, and we're going to be redistricting here shortly. I think it's in September in Maryland. So we'll see if we're going to run again. We left money in the bank to do so. So hopefully we will.
Kim, what is your social media coordinates? People want to know how they can follow you.
Yeah, so on Twitter, it's Kim K. Baltimore, Instagram and Facebook, Kimberly Klacik. And I think that's actually all I have. I'm kind of a dork.
Kim, here's the thing. You got an open invitation. When you get back to Baltimore, we want you down here in D.C. in the War Room as a co-host in studio. So honored to have you on. You're full of fire. You did not back down. That's what people love about you. You've got a lot of fight in you.
Thank you so much. I would love to. Just let me know when I'm there. Okay,
Kim Klacik, thank you very much. Okay, massive news coming out of Arizona today. The state senate, there's now looks like it's going to be a 2.1 million votes in Maricopa County. As soon as we can let me know when we get Mark Finchem up. Mark Finchem's under pressure today. He's at CPAC Live. Our representative from Southern Arizona, from Oro Valley. Finchem is getting an award today from one of the side parallel events taking place at the Hyatt. Anybody's been to CPAC knows you have the main room, you have the main event, and then you've got these breakout rooms. You've got these breakout rooms that they have seminars, movies, talks, panels, and Finchem is getting an award for tax policy today. Just to reiterate, a big breaking news out of Arizona. There's going to be, I think it's going to lead to a potential hand count. I understand already Mark's going to break some news with us. I think Maricopa Board of Supervisors, which remember, 5 in total, 4 Republicans. And what they have, these guys are fighting it right now. If we don't get Mark up, we're going to have to take him through the break and come on the other side of the break. Big news coming out of CPAC today. Matt Gaetz threw down hard on Liz Cheney, just went after her and said, hey, if she had come here, she'd been booed. You had a bunch of panels up there of people taking on the establishment and said, hey, this is a populist nationalist movement. Don Jr. gave a great speech, gave an incredible speech that people really got jacked up about, kind of a preamble to his father's speech on Sunday afternoon. Just for programming, tomorrow morning, we're going to be live at CPAC. Pam Pryor from the State Department was on the 16 campaign with us, was the religious affairs officer at the State Department under Mike Pompeo, is going to be co-host here live in Washington, D.C. with Frank Gaffney. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have people either on panels or couldn't make panels about religious liberty, about the persecution of Christians, about the Chinese Communist Party, how they're persecuting people throughout the world. We've got many other special guests. We'll have a totally packed show. Take a short commercial break. I'm going to come back and have Mark Finchem from Arizona next when we return to the War Room.
It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over, 'cause we're taking down the CCP, spread the word all through Hong Kong, we will fight till they're all gone, we rejoice when there's no more, let's take down the CCP, they have all lied for too long, we will...
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we go back to CPAC. We have Mark Finchem.
War Room.
We go back to CPAC. Mark Finchem joins us now from he's from Southern Arizona, a representative in the Arizona House. He's getting an award today for his tax policy, for being a fighter for lower taxes. But tell the audience, there's some big news out of Arizona today on the ballots. What's the latest?
Steve, great news, and I'll be as succinct as I can be. The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, as you no doubt have heard, has fought every step of the way to try and prevent the people from having transparency into that election. Today, in what appears to be the last straw for the Maricopa County Superior Court, judge issued their ruling on the challenge that the Senate did not have the authority to have subpoenas, and he said, the court finds that subpoenas are legal and enforceable. There is no question that the senators have the power to issue legislative subpoenas. Boom. That means it's over. Now, they may try to appeal it, but this is going to be a really tough road to hoe for them.
So what does this mean practically? You say it's over for them. What's the next step, the next mechanical step? Is this actually going to lead to a full audit, a full forensic audit of these physical ballots?
Well, that's the order of both the Judiciary Chairman and the President of the Senate. But adding to that, this coming Wednesday, Senator Borelli and I will be meeting with representatives from the Arizona Attorney General's office, and we're going to be asking for a grand jury. So it'll put just that much more pressure to get this forensic audit done.
Ho. You're asking for a grand jury to investigate for civil or criminal. What are you guys asking for? You and Borelli are tough hombres. What are you guys asking for a grand jury for?
Well, the election procedure manual makes any actions that do not follow the manual a Class 2 misdemeanor, Class 1 being the most serious, Class 6 the least. So what that means is we believe that this situation is now a crime scene. In fact, it's been a crime scene for a while. And the reason we say that is that when the Maricopa Board of Supervisors brought in the very same people who certified the equipment and claimed it to be their version of a forensic audit, two different outfits, neither one of them had an arm's length distance. They're actually part of the problem, and they're the ones doing the audit. We know that they opened the equipment, that they stuck drives into it, and all of this was while the Maricopa Board was under a subpoena already pre-existing with the Senate. So what they've done is they've tampered with evidence. They've tampered with the scene, and that now makes it we allege to be a crime.
Hold it. So you're going to want a grand jury impaneled for criminal charges against the Republican-controlled Board of Supervisors of Maricopa County. Is that what I just want to make sure I'm hearing that right?
You're hearing that right. We want the Attorney General's office to examine the evidence and make a determination as to whether or not a grand jury investigation should go forward, or if they just go directly to a grand jury and impanel one. I doubt that it'll be the impanelment of a grand jury. I think that it is going to lead, though, to an investigation, because we've got incontrovertible evidence on electronic interference.
Incontrovertible.
So that's on top of what's already going on at the Senate.
Wow. Mark, I know you got to go get your tax award. What's the tax award you're going to get? What's the name of the award?
Conservative tax policy. Basically trying to say no, standing up and saying no to big interests that always want to try and put their nose in the taxpayer trough.
God bless you. Mark, what's your social media? You've become a big hero to this audience, and people are glad to have your voice back. What's your social media handle? At
AZ Honey Badger on Gab. I basically have told Twitter and Facebook, you're not welcome in my house or in my mind. They're not living rent-free in my brain.
The Arizona Honey Badger, Delegate Mark Finchem. Sir, thank you very much for joining us from CPAC Live today in the War Room.
Thank you, Steve.
That's a honey badger you do not want after you, Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. Okay, there's a panel today. I want to bring in Dave Ramaswamy. Dave is now a strategic analyst for us, a correspondent and commentator. Dave's one of the smartest guys I've met, understands Asia and what's happening over there besides venture capital markets. Dave, they had a panel at CPAC today, a good panel. I think Gordon Chang was heading up about the countries around Chinese Communist Party, around China, and the problems they have with China as a neighbor. They weren't able to secure somebody that was understands India. So we wanted to bring you on because I know a lot of people asked about that panel. Walk through right now. You're hearing so much controversy. You're seeing film, video, etc. What is going on between China and India, and why was it important to have India on that panel and to be able to talk about this important strategic relationship?
See, Steve, geography is not yet history, and India is the country which shares the longest land border with China. It shares about 2,100 miles. And historically, it was not the case. There was always the buffer state of Tibet between India and China. And India and China are both civilizational states. India has had a 10,000-year civilization which in continuous existence, and China a few thousand years less. And so India, and even to your listeners, just to take a step back, even the English word China originates from the Sanskrit, the Indian Sanskrit language, China. So we know China as China thanks to India. And also the other important word, the word Mandarin. The word Mandarin, which is used not just for the majority language spoken in China, but also as a mid-level minister or bureaucrat, also derives from the Sanskrit Indian language, from the word mantri, which means minister. So the point I'm trying to make is no other country has had a long-standing relationship with China like India, and India is going to be key going forward, not just for America, but for the rest of the world to understand and realign our security policy, economic policy, and cyber policy to combat the threats emanating from the CCP. And I'll give you a couple of examples. In the last 70 years, after the Chinese Communist Party took over in 1949, India's had like 3 wars with China, okay? And I mean, the war most commonly known or well known is the one from 1962, which coincided with the Cuban Missile Crisis. So when the US and USSR were busy in the Cuban Missile Crisis, China under Mao, Chairman Mao, invaded India. And at that point, Prime Minister Nehru of India did not see the threat, the communist threat, because he himself was greatly influenced by the Soviet Union. And he almost couldn't believe his eyes that the peace agreement with China signed in 1955 of non-threatening each other's territories was violated by Chairman Mao. And the war ended in very unique circumstances. You know, China had occupied almost 40,000 square kilometers of Indian territory, and it was on the verge of running through India, down from the mountains, the Himalayas, down to the plains, when an Indian 120-man army contingent took on 5,000 to 6,000 PLA Chinese army soldiers and blew them out of the water. They fired the last bullet. I mean, this battle was fought at 18,000 feet, the Battle of Razang La. And so the Indian army of a force of 120 soldiers stopped 5,000 Chinese soldiers dead in their tracks. And Chairman Mao called a ceasefire the very couple of days later. So the point I'm trying to make is India has taken on the Chinese army way back in 1962. It took on the Chinese army last summer. I was on your show a couple of times talking about this in Ladakh in the Himalayas. It blocked the army. And so Indian military, which is professional, which is decentralized, draws its forces from all over India, similar to the American military, and has broad-based support since India is a democracy, is the only country which has stood up to the Chinese Communist Party in the last 50 years, taken them on, and won.
Dave, we got to bounce.
So India is going to be a linchpin.
Yes, the linchpin
going forward with America.
It's the linchpin in the Indo-Pacific strategy. Dave, we're going to have you back on early in the week, or maybe hopefully in the Sunday if we can clear out some time. How do people follow you on social media right now?
Steve, they can follow me on Gab, Dave Ramaswamy.
So hold it. This is breaking news. Ramaswamy's not on Twitter. You went to Gab full time?
Yeah, absolutely. The future is decentralized. Everything is decentralized.
We're going to talk to you about that. We're going to talk to you about that later in the week. Dave Ramaswamy, one of the smartest guys I know. Hey, he's off Twitter. Just like India's standing up to him, India's standing up to the social media oligarchs, Dave Ramaswamy's doing it individually. Brother, thank you so much.
Let me leave your listeners with a comment. India now has its homegrown alternative to Twitter. It's called Koo, K-O-O. And most of the Indian government officials, lovers of liberty in India are switching to this platform Koo as an alternative to Twitter. And I call it a bloodless coup against the social media giants, big tech.
Dave Ramaswamy, thank you. You got him on Gab. Thank you very much, sir. Look forward to having you back. Okay, let's pivot now.
Thank you, Steve.
We've got Captain Maureen Bannon. She was on a panel earlier today, but I got to ask you, we're burning time here, but this the equality bill passed yesterday. I know you've been at the forefront of this women's sport since you were a Division I athlete. Talk to us about the energy at CPAC, and also, is there a focus among young women about what's happening on this Equality Act, and where are people's heads right now?
There is, even though it's not being discussed by the panel of speakers and the speakers at CPAC, among the radio shows, it's a big topic of conversation. I was on the Ox, and that was our first subject that we talked about, was the Equality Act and how it passed 224 to 206 in the House. And this is it will get rid of women's sports. This is a horrible thing. This needs to fail in the Senate. There was a bill like this in 2019 that was passed in the House and failed in the Senate. This one needs to do the exact same thing.
Hang on. There are three Republicans that voted for it. I'll get to that in a second. But you were on a panel. You were at the Ox in Minnesota. The guy's on like 10, 12 stations up there. That guy's the Rush Limbaugh of Minnesota. So you were on his panel?
I was the token female, so I was very passionate about women's rights and women in sports, and I think I got some of their viewers to feel the passion.
What do you say about it? Go ahead.
There were three Republicans that voted yes, and that was Representative Katko of New York, Representative Reed of New York, and Representative Fitzgerald of Pennsylvania.
So what do you think?
These three gentlemen need to be primaried.
Why are you saying that? We got about a minute.
There's no reason they should have voted yes.
Even if they're in heavily Democratic
districts. There's no reason. If they have correct. If they have daughters, if they have sisters, their wives, they wouldn't want this to happen to any of them. If they have daughters or sisters that have played sports, you don't want a scholarship taken from a woman or a girl that has worked extremely hard her whole life for something, and then it to be taken away from a male that chooses to identify as a female, that has to do nothing but say, I choose to identify as a female. It is 100% wrong. Scholarship should not be taken away.
What do you say? We got about 20 seconds. What do you say when the Democrats say, you guys are just haters? You're just haters, and it's not about women's sports, you're just haters.
I'm shocked that feminists are not standing up for this. They fought for Title IX rights for women in sports, and they're silent now. You do not hear a woman on the left speaking up against this. Why is it just women on the right fighting for women's rights? It should be across the board.
Okay,
everyone needs to stand up for women's rights, especially women in sports.
We're going to bounce. We're going to put your social media up after the break.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, I know we blow up a lot of these so-called medical experts, and particularly in the corrupt medical cartel. Well, the War Room's now done something about it. We were able to procure 1 million bottles of vitamin D3 and 1 million bottles of zinc. And we're putting together a program. We want to get you guys to get this for free. All you have to do is go to warroomdefense.com. We set up the War Room Defense Pack. This is to get you healthier, make you full of energy. We're going to have other programs going forward, but this is all free. We've got vitamin D3 and zinc. You go to warroomdefense.com for the War Room Defense Pack. You see it up there right now. We got it up on the screen. This is something we've been working on for a long time. We're going to have a lot more stuff coming out. Remember, none of the ingredients, this is not made in China. This is 100% here in the United States of America. This follows into the Rosemary Gibson supply chain for medical goods. So this is something that we're very passionate about. We're starting now. You can't be a patriot warrior until you're a healthy patriot. This is critical. This is a long game. It's a grind. It's 7 days a week. We want you to be part of the War Room Defense Pack. Go to War Room Defense. That's all one word, warroomdefense.com. We've procured 1 million bottles of vitamin D3 and 1 million bottles of zinc. You can get it all for free. Just go to warroomdefense.com. Okay, now I want to talk to a fighter. Maggie, you're pretty worked up. Something happened to one of the guys that we've had on the show a couple of times, a guy we think very highly of, DC Drano. What has happened at CPAC? There's some breaking news?
Yeah, so there's definitely a bit of drama here at CPAC. Obviously, I'm on social media all day posting updates from CPAC, and I saw that DC Drano was detained by the authorities here at CPAC. He was harassed, and it was all because he was not wearing a mask while taking selfies with his followers. And this is just, hey, can I get a selfie with you? Pulling down the mask below the chin, snapping a selfie. And this was so much, it was just too much for the authorities. And they said, hey, step aside. We need to talk to you. You're going to be ejected from CPAC. They threatened to have him arrested, but I guess something happened. They calmed down the situation. He's still here. But I mean, it's a bit outrageous considering that we are in a free state run by Ron DeSantis, who has said that, you know, we don't enforce the mask mandates, but at a county level here in Orlando, they have a rule where they do enforce the mask mandates. So, I mean, I'm pretty upset. I think it's a bit obnoxious to force everyone here to walk around in a mask, even healthy people who don't buy into this. And I mean, this is a Republican leadership conference. Where's the leadership on this issue?
Remember, DC Drano is the young man that came on here and proposed the idea of Trump actually heading up the ticket in 2022, becoming Speaker of the House after our sweeping victory, getting rid of Nancy Pelosi and impeaching Joe Biden. I've kind of taken it up. It was in the Boston Herald story of the speech I gave in Lincoln Day, but it's DC Drano's. So he's one of these young, hard chargers, and he's a guy with definitely a point of view. Maggie, I think what the confusion is that people know DeSantis has done such a great job. Everybody I know from out the country is going down to Florida and said, man, it's like the United States used to be, right? It's not like New York. It's not like L.A. It's like things used to be, and it's being handled properly. CPAC is so famous. It has a storied history. Knowing that it was coming here, and I think you've actually moved to Florida or spent a lot more time in Florida, knowing it was coming there, did the authorities single out the conservative, this great conservative leadership conference, particularly with all the young people coming? Do you guys feel you were singled out, or is this just something they do everywhere?
What a little garbled there, but I think you were asking me about the young people here at CPAC, and I just wanted to let you know that it is absolutely so inspiring to see the young people here coming out and knowing that they are the future of this movement and that they got brought into politics, many of them through social media and many of them because of President Trump. I was bombarded earlier by a group of young people who, I mean, it was just the greatest compliment to me that they said that they were inspired to get involved with politics from following my account early on, and that now they're inspired to be here to get involved in leadership, to start Turning Point on their school, on their college campus, and to just get more and more involved in politics. So it's really inspiring and encouraging to see. And yeah, I also heard about another organization that the young people are pushing, which is called Run Gen Z, which I guess is inspiring young people and helping them get to run in local politics at sort of a city and a state level. It's exciting and encouraging to see.
Fantastic. Last question, back to the mask. Do you think that CPAC was targeted by the local officials, or is this something they do to everybody? Do you think they targeted CPAC because of high-profile people like you and DC Drano and others?
I would not be surprised, Steve. I would not be surprised. But much of Orlando is like this. I've been told that all of the hotels around here all are requiring masks in the common areas of the hotels.
Okay, last question. I know the influencers have been suppressed by the tech oligarchs. Can you give people any hope that the influencers are going to be back up and all your information will be back out that people can get, or is this suppression by the tech oligarchs, is it continuing?
So for the influencers who haven't been outright banned yet, which there are many who are just gone and wiped off the internet at this point, but for those of us who are still on there, many of us are being heavily suppressed. So my social media engagement on Instagram is down 96%. So that means that 96% of my followers are not seeing my content. So people have to go out of their way to search for you, to find your content, but we're still out here, we're still fighting. DC Drano's posting all the time. So you can find the content. You just got to go out of your way to seek it out.
We got about 30 seconds. How can people get you during the day? How can people find Fog City Midge?
I'm still at Fog City Midge on Instagram and Twitter. I'm more active on Twitter these days because I'm not as shadow banned. So if you guys want to get a message to me, hit me up at Fog City Midge.
Fog City, thank you so much for being in the War Room this afternoon, live from CPAC. Okay, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you, ma'am. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we're going to be live in CPAC for the entire show. It's going to be extraordinary. We're going to have people talking about the persecution of Christians, the persecution of other faith groups throughout the world, people coming right off the panels, right off the stage, coming in to interview. We've got the Real America's Voice posse down there, John Fredericks. We've got the War Room, Captain Bannon, Fog City Midge. Hopefully maybe even get Paulina back and Kim Klacik. It's going to be intense. Please make sure you come back and join us at 10 a.m. tomorrow, 10 to noon, live from CPAC, the War Room. We'll see you at 10 a.m. tomorrow.